Hello, students. Professor Arnelene Torres here for 21st Century Skills course. This is the first video presentation for this course. Last week, during our online discussion, we talked about the world 20 years from now. In this video presentation, I will summarize what we have talked about and it will be followed by how should learning be. So, let's start. The world has changed in the last few decades that the roles of learning and education in day to day living have also changed forever. Though many of the skills needed in centuries past, such as critical thinking and problem solving, are even more relevant today, how these skills are learned and practiced in everyday life in the 21st century is rapidly shifting. There are some new skills to master, such as digital media literacy, that weren't imagined 50 years ago. To help you get a better feel for the changes coming to education and learning, we have done an exercise on what will the world 20 years forward that makes the issue of learning for our times very personal and very real. What will the world be 20 years from now? These are some of the trends that we discussed on our online class. We talk about social and people, technology trends, economic and market trends, political and regulatory. To help you recall the different issues under social and people trends, we have seen or we've talked about that lifelong learning will become a human need. And baby boomers' demand will transform aged care. Quantified healthcare will change our lives. The talent battleground encourages empowerment and flexibility. And there's a possibility of a human life in Mars. Moving on technology trends, we discuss the possibility of having a planet of the bots. We also talked about films that will be created by artificial intelligence and computer generated imagery. We also have looked into the birth of superhumans, humans who are prone to germs, to viruses. We talked about blockchain that will fulfill Internet of Things potential and the possible entry of the quantum age. Under economics and market trends, currency sovereignty will become corporatized, the food production and consumption will be transformed, turbocharging of the global payment system can be on its way very soon. And then we talked about under political and regulatory trends that climate change will trigger a shift to environmental regulation, that technology access will be a social divider, and that investment in renewable energy technology will trigger a surge in the use of renewables. We have a glimpse of the future. And so, how do we respond to the needs of the future? How do we prepare the professionals to respond to the changing world? The 21st century learning skills require the following: learning and innovation skills, digital literacy skills, and career life skills. How do we prepare the students for them to respond to this changing world? The preparation should start in the classroom. So, the big question in the second part of this presentation is how should learning be? I have some key points here on how should learning be in order for us to get to use to how do we work on the 21st century. Like the 21st century is actually more on working as a team and solving problems. So the world of work is increasingly made of teams working together to solve problems and creating something new. Because as I've said, we have to respond to the needs of the time. But the big question is, why do students mostly work alone and compete with others? for professors' approval. Isn't it the complete opposite of how we should train our students? Technology is more a part of people's lives, especially students each day. Wherever you go, when you look around, you see people having the access to the technology, whether it be the simple phone or a smartphone. And so, nowadays, students are very adept to the use of this technology. But why should students have to limit their use of technology in the classroom if it's used for learning? Moving forward to a next thing that we have to look into, doing projects in something one cares about comes naturally to learners. As we have talked about in our online discussion like last week, most of you, as you tell your stories, as you look back to how you enjoyed your middle school years and how you're enjoying your university years, is when you do something, when you come up with a project, whether it be it an experiment or a feasibility study or a case study. And so, by responding to these projects, you learn more than answering questions. But why you spend so much time, or why do classrooms spend so much time on disconnected questions at the end of a textbook chapter? The reason why I don't want students to memorize, the reason why I don't follow a textbook, it's because I want my students to be innovative in learning. I want them to learn in a different way. And so, because for me, I believe that you will learn better if you work on a project. The world is full of engaging, real world challenges, problems, and questions. Look at the current situation that we have now. There's a big challenge, not only in our country, but in the whole world. And that challenge is, how do we prevent the spread of the virus? How do we cure people who are affected by the virus? And how do we prevent this pandemic to happen again? So, these are real world challenges. These are problems that needs to be solved. But why learning projects are so scarce inside so many classrooms? I think students need more projects for them to practice how to be engaged in a real world problems and questions. Innovation and creativity are so important to the future success of our economy. Two keywords that we have to remember here: innovation. Our world is moving towards the innovation age, and creativity. But why do schools spend so little time on developing creativity and innovation skills? Our lesson is about why and how the global landscape for learning is reshaping itself, and about what this global transformation may require of what you need to learn to be successful. So, this is the end of the presentation. I hope that you remember some of the possibilities that may happen in the future. And I want you to ponder on the five questions or the five issues on how learning should be. The good news is that schools around the world are moving closer to learning the science we know our students need for the 21st century success. Schools from Singapore to Sydney, Helsinki to Hong Kong, and the United Kingdom to the United States are innovating learning as their students learn how to innovate. A vibrant global movement is in play to retune the instruments of education for a new rising bond of digital learners and to sync up learning to the rhythms of the 21st century. So, let's start and be on the road to innovative learning as we approach the 21st century. This presentation is for the 21st Century Skills Course, Kim Young University, towards the 21st century. To discover how we eventually get to the knowledge age, we first have to reflect back on the information age. And in order to trace the origins of the information age, we have to go all the way back to 1991. In 1991, the total money spent on industrial age goods in the United States, things like engines and machines for agriculture, mining, construction, manufacturing, transportation, energy production, and so on, was exceeded for the first time in history by the amount spent on information and communications technologies, computers, servers, printers, software, phones, networking devices, and systems, and the like. Knowledge age expenditures exceeded industrial age spending by 5 billion US dollars. That is 112 billion US dollars versus 107 billion US dollars. That year marked year one of a new age of information, knowledge, and innovation. Since then, countries around the globe have increasingly been spending more on the making, manipulating, managing, and moving bits and bytes of information than on handling the material world's atoms and molecules. This massive shift from industrial age production to that of the knowledge age economy, information driven, globally networked, is as world changing and life altering as the shift from the agrarian to the industrial age 350 years ago. Moving on from a primary nuts and bolts factory and manufacturing economy to the one based on data, information, knowledge, and expertise has had a huge impact on the world's economies and our everyday lives. The sequence of steps to produce a product or a service, the so called value chain of work, has dramatically shifted. Industrial economies are focused on turning natural resources, such as plants and animal skins, into products we use, such as textile. Knowledge economies turn information, expertise, and technological innovations into services we need, like food production, food service, and service technologies. It does mean that with increasing automation and the shifting of manufacturing and its environmental impacts to lower wage industrial equipped countries such as China, India, and Brazil, industrial work in knowledge countries will continue to decline, and service based knowledge work will continue to grow well in the 21st century. But that's only one of the whole bundle of big changes that have arrived at our doorstep in the early part of the 21st century. And these changes will continue to make new demands on education as the century progresses. Let's move on to the 21st issues and challenges. The first issue is the world's financial and economic ecosystem as an interlinked system. A disruption in one part of the world has consequences to economies everywhere. Let's take a look at our country, Korea. Here in Korea, we have an issue. We have a health issue, and actually, this health issue is not only a national issue, but a worldwide issue. And so, because of this health issue, it has ordered businesses to be put on stop. For instance, the airline industry, as people are discouraged to travel. This slowing down or a total stop of business operations has affected tourism and other stakeholders, especially flight attendants, pilots, and other service providers. These service providers has to maintain a living expenses, they have a family to support, and they have other bills to pay. This means that in their expense chain, this will affect the other businesses, such as their housing payment, if there's any, their insurance payment, or even their children's tuition fees. Another issue is the growing disparity in the world between the rich and the poor. This disparity, this uneven distribution of wealth, can lead to a social tension, like, for example, forced getting of somebody's resources. It can lead to conflicts in a sense that those who have more money can buy more groceries or more food items. It can result to extremism and a less safe world for everyone. Because if somebody's getting hungry, the tendency for them is to beg, or if they can't beg, they will get through force whatever you have. Most of the challenges to the survival of all societies are coming from our physical environment. Global population has risen from 2.5 billion in 1950 to 7.7 billion in 2019. This figure is expected to exceed 9 billion by 2015. Despite the widespread poverty, increasing numbers of people are rising into the middle class lifestyles, which drastically increases their consumption of Earth's material and energy resources. Increased consumption of resources is causing climate change and other threats to the natural world and its global life support system. Add up overpopulation, overconsumption, increased global competition and interdependence, melting ice caps, financial meltdowns, and wars, and other threats to security, and you'll get a bumpy road to 21st century. One of education's chief roles is to prepare future workers and citizens to deal with the challenges of their times. Knowledge work, the kind of work that most people will need in the coming decades, can be done anywhere by anyone who has the expertise, a cell phone, a laptop, and an internet connection. But to have expert knowledge workers, every country needs an education system that produces them. Therefore, education becomes the key to economic survival in the 21st century. To further understand what are times demand of our education, we must take a look at the changing world of the 21st century. Let's move on to a new topic, which is about learning and earning, the future of work and careers. A few years ago, 400 hiring executives of major corporations were asked a very simple but significant question. Are students graduating from school really ready to work? The executives' collective answer: not really. The study showed that students graduating from secondary schools, technical colleges, and universities are lucky in some basic skills and a large number of applied skills. What are the skills that they talked about? Oral and written communications, critical thinking and problem solving, professionalism and work ethic, teamwork and collaboration, working in diverse teams, applying technology, leadership, and project management. Reports from around the world confirm that this 21st century skills gap is costing business a great deal of money. Some estimate that well over 200 billion a year is spent worldwide in finding and hiring scarce, highly skilled talent and in bringing new employees up to the required skills level through costly training programs. As the budgets tighten further in tough economic times, companies need highly competent employees ready to hit the ground running without extra training and development costs. We can say that the competitiveness and wealth of corporations and countries are completely dependent on having a well educated workforce. A 2006 report called it Learning is Earning. Improving a country's literacy by a small amount can have a huge positive economic impacts. Education also increases the earning potential of workers. An additional year of schooling can improve a person's lifetime wages by 10% or more. So, why education is falling short in preparing students for 21st century work? The world of knowledge age work requires a new mix of skills. Jobs that require routine manual and thinking skills are giving way to jobs that involve higher levels of knowledge and applied skills like expert thinking and complex communicating. The rising demand for a highly skilled workforce also means that there will be a growing income gap between less educated, relatively unskilled workers and highly educated, highly skilled workers. Routine tasks are increasingly being automated, and the routine jobs still done by people barely paid a living wage. Routine work is moving to countries where the cost of labor is very low. Our world's education systems must now prepare as many students as possible for jobs at the top of the chart, the high paying knowledge work jobs of today and tomorrow that require complex skills, expertise, and creativity. And many of the jobs of the future do not even exist today. What is certain is that two essential skill sets will remain at the top of the list of the job requirements for the 21st century: the ability to quickly acquire and apply new knowledge, and the know how to apply the essential 21st century skills such as problem solving, communication, teamwork, technology use, and innovation. To get a better sense of the rising importance of learning and education, it is useful to step back and take a look at the roles of education has played in the past, where learning is heading, and the forces driving these changes.